I was actually listening to your podcast when I was suicidal. And I always said to myself, if I'm going to get better, I would love to talk on the podcast. And here I am.
Hey there, my name is Sean, and this is Suicide Noted. On this podcast, I talk with suicide attempt survivors so that we can hear their stories. Every year around the world, millions of people try to take their own lives, and we almost never talk about it. We certainly don't talk about it enough. And when we do talk about it, many of us, including me, are not very good at it. So one of my goals with this podcast is to have more conversations and hopefully better conversations with attempt survivors. Why? Well, in large part, to help more people in more places feel a little less shitty and a little less alone. And if you have been a part of that, however that looks like, thank you. Now, if you are a suicide attempt survivor and you'd like to talk, please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com, on Facebook or Twitter /X @suicidenoted. And you can check the show notes to learn more about the podcast, including our membership. We would love your support, or that kind of support. Keep in mind, rating and reviewing the Suicide Noted podcast really helps. It especially helps people find the podcast. You can do that on Apple, and you can also do that on Spotify. Now, I believe they make it a little more complicated. You have to listen to the end of the episode to have an opportunity to leave a review. You can also leave a comment inside the description of a particular episode in the show notes. To all of my former guests who have joined me here on the podcast, let me know if you'd like to be a part of something we're trying to do soon, which is guest updates. I want to know what you're up to, how you've been, what life is like. If you're not a former guest and don't plan on being a guest, I'd still love to hear your thoughts, your comments, your questions. And if you ask a question or two, I would love to invite our members. I plan to release some special episodes in which members answer your questions. And of course, I'll be a part of that. And also, if you just want to share a little bit, email me. I'm happy to read that on the air. We can do that anonymously, but hey, that's another way to get it out there. Share your voice, even if in some small way. And yeah, it'll help people. So that's also an option. You know how to reach me. So please, I encourage you to do that. Finally, we are talking about suicide on this podcast. We don't hold back. So please take that into account before you listen or as you listen. But I do hope you listen, because there is so much to learn. Today, I am talking with Polly. Polly lives in England, and she is a suicide attempt survivor. Hey, Polly.
Hi.
So Polly's in England, late afternoon, early evening there. Where exactly are you in your home?
My mum's bedroom.
Does your mom know that you're talking to me?
Yes, she does. My bedroom's at the front of the house, and there's cars that come past, so I didn't want to make noise. And she said, "Oh, just go in my bedroom."
So go in my bedroom and talk to a stranger about suicide?
Yeah, pretty much. She said, yeah, I think you should do it. I think it'll be good for you.
I like your mom.
Yeah, she's great. She's really great.
Do you hang out with your dad?
My mum and dad are together. My dad he works a lot, but again, he doesn't actually know. I don't think he knows that I'm talking. It's not a secret, but I just haven't got around to telling him, but I'm sure I will.
Well, that's cool. One wonders, Polly, in England, why in the world you would want to talk to anybody about such a thing, let alone somebody you don't know. Actually, that aside, you do kind of know me through the podcast. You've heard at least.
Yeah.
But then share things with the world about something that I think most humans would say is exceptionally personal.
I think because this is something that I had never experienced before prior to me going through this recently. And now I've come out of the other side of it. My view on it is, if I'm going to make something out of the situation that I went through, then perhaps I can put it to good use by speaking about it on a platform like this, that maybe people might look up for answers or for help. That's what I did. That's how I found the podcast. And I thought, if I can help someone, even just one person going through it, by sharing my experience, then I'm all for it.
For sure. Cool. Mm-hmm. Thank you then. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you're not the person then who was struggling in that kind of way since you were like 10 years old?
No, not from what I can remember. I was always a very happy kid, had a very good childhood.
Happy go lucky, we say here.
Yeah, yeah, that's what my mum used to say to me all the time. You're so
Yeah.
happy-go-lucky.
When you were little, happy go lucky, Polly.
Yeah,
Polly go lucky.
yeah.
And what part of England are you in?
I'm in a town called Sidcup,
Sidcup?
and yeah, and I think it was actually James Corden said it was the armpit of Britain. I never liked him, to be honest. I don't care. We're close to an airport. We're close enough to the beach. We're close enough to the countryside and close enough to get into London. There's not much going on. It's quite built up, just loads of new houses, new developments being built all the time. So,
What's the predominant football/soccer club people pull for there?
well, my family support Arsenal, but you've got like Millwall, Manchester United, Manchester City. I'm not really into football. I watch the World Cup. I don't really support a football team, if I'm honest.
Okay. England's got a good football club, soccer club, men and women, you know. And World Cup coming to North America in 2026.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You think you'll be alive to see that?
Yeah. You caught
Earlier
me off guard then.
Yeah.
I thought, why are you asking
What?
me that? And I thought, oh, yeah, because I'm talking about suicide. Of course you're going to ask that.
A little bit of a curveball, as we say in baseball terms. We're not only talking about suicide, of course, but that is the premise of the show. How old are you, Polly?
I'm 23.
23-year-old Polly in England. You mentioned before I started recording that you have a sister. Does she know we're talking?
No, do you know what? I haven't actually told her. Again, it's not a secret. She doesn't live at home, so
Yeah, no, I get it.
she moved out. So I haven't. But saying that, I saw her yesterday. But I just didn't tell her. I will tell her probably eventually. But
Does your mom, dad, and or sister know about your attempt?
yeah, they're all aware.
How would you characterize how each one of them responded when they learned that you had tried?
Well, my mum was at home when it happened. I took an overdose at night and then wasn't obviously expecting to wake up the next morning, but I did. And I kind of forgotten that I don't know, it was very hazy. I was very drowsy. I kind of didn't really know where I was.
Yeah.
And I went to go to the toilet. I'd also downed half a bottle of vodka with it. So I was very all over the place. And my mum come up the stairs to offer me a cup of tea. And as she come up the stairs, I just collapsed. So she was the one that actually found me. And then obviously was like, what have you done? And I was just really drowsy and out of it. And I didn't want to tell her what I'd done because I thought if I told her, then the ambulance would come and then it wouldn't have worked, even though it obviously didn't work anyway. But I just flopped on the bed, and then my sister's a nurse, so she rang my sister. So my sister was on her way to work. She drove straight over. Then my mum rang my dad. My dad drove straight over. Yeah, they was all there, and then the ambulance came in and yeah, was putting like monitors on my heart and stuff, and I got taken away in an ambulance. But it was that day I was really I was hallucinating. It was really weird. So I was on I got put on antidepressants.
Yeah.
And I was put on citalopram, and they didn't help at all. And I don't know if I know they say it can make you worse in the beginning, but I literally wasn't feeling any better. I wasn't sleeping or anything. So I was having auditory hallucinations, and not so much hearing people talk, but I would hear music in the distance that wasn't there. I'd hear like robotic sounds. Like when I remember I was laying in the hospital bed and all I could hear was like all robotic like music that wasn't even there, and people were trying to talk to me, and I was just so focused on this music. Like, why am I hearing music in a hospital? And I was just so out of it that day that it is quite blurry because I was suffering with depression and I was having really bad anxiety. I wasn't sleeping at all. I'd stay awake all night, and I was buzzing like with really bad anxiety. And I would keep going into my mum's room and going, "Can you hear that music?" Because I was really paranoid. She was like, "Polly, there's no music." It sounded that I'd hear like songs on a loop, thinking that someone's having a party down the road. My mum's like, "Polly, I promise you, there's nothing." And I'm like, "Mum, I can hear music." Like, it was really scary. I thought I was losing my mind.
And then the not sleeping thing, which
Yeah, it was. I mean, the not sleeping, I think, caused that because it makes you go a bit delirious. I think all your senses are out of whack, and I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't going out, I wasn't exercising, I wasn't doing anything.
Did you have a job that you lost?
it kind of all started from this job, and this is kind of where it all went downhill. So I was originally working for, I was a mortgage advisor. So I'd qualified as a mortgage advisor. So I
Mm.
was doing that. I did that for about 5 years. When I was 16, I went straight to this job.
Wow.
Yeah. And then was an administrator for a little bit, and then decided I want to do my qualification to be able to do mortgage advisory. So I did that, and then I was into my baking a little bit, and I thought, oh, do you know what? I want to go and do something else, a bit more creative. So I left that job and I went to culinary school,
Okay.
and I trained to be a pastry chef.
Seriously, this is sounding really
Yeah.
delicious.
I mean, at this time, I was on cloud nine. Culinary school was amazing. It was so fun. And so we're talking, I did this at the end of 2021. In London, it was Le Cordon Bleu Culinary School.
That sounds like a culinary school that I would go
It
to.
was, honestly, it was amazing. No negatives from that. I had no bad mental health from that.
Yeah.
That was so fun. It was kind of like my gap year. I thought, I want to go off and do something fun. So I did that for 9 months because I'd literally left school, went straight into work for 5 years at the same
Yeah.
pace. And I thought, do you know what? I've got the money saved in the bank. My mum and dad helped me out with the tuition fee as well. And I said, look, I really want to go and try and see if, this is something that I want to do. And culinary school was great. Couldn't fault it. Had the best time. It was so fun. I learned so much. So I graduated from there June 2022.
So from that point when you finish, a year later you try to take your life.
Yeah. So I then graduated. Then at the end of graduation, if you pay an extra fee, the school will enroll you in a place for an internship for 3 months. So I opted for that, and I went and did a internship in a hotel in London. And so I did that for 3 months. Really enjoyed it. They offered me a place there to work, and I was like, yeah, do you know what? I'll do it. So this was then 3 months later. So it was in September. Working in a kitchen, it is a very toxic environment, and it's not necessarily that there's constant shouting and stuff. It's a little bit different in a pastry kitchen because we was doing like afternoon tea stuff. So we were just like decorating all the cakes. We weren't doing service all the time. Let's just say my manager, if you want to say, wasn't a very good manager. And we worked every weekend, every holiday. I never knew what days off I was going to have. They changed every single week. So I could never make plans in advance. Very early starts and very late nights, commuting into London, which took me over an hour. I really was just trying to push myself to do it because I really thought, well, I've studied now and I've got this qualification. I left my good job to do this.
Yeah.
I've really gone all in. Yeah. And I think, so I accepted the job to start, carry on in September. I noticed at that point, but I just suppressed it a lot, that I was actually getting quite unwell mentally. My skin started getting really bad. I mean, I have acne here and there, but it was completely really bad acne. I had no energy. I had no social life. I didn't see my friends anymore because I didn't have time. But I kept convincing myself that was okay. This is life now. This is your career, but I never got to spend time with my family. I worked on Christmas, all the holidays. And I think I just kept telling myself, well, no, this is it now. You just got to accept it. Yeah, the environment was quite toxic. And I think, I was lying to myself for quite a long time that this was okay when it obviously wasn't. Well, my family started to pick up on it in December. I went on holiday with my mum. We just went for a little trip away. And the whole time I was on edge. I couldn't just lay down and sunbathe. She was like, Polly, just sit down, like just calm down. I was anxious about things I'd done at work, that people were going to be annoyed at something I'd done, making up stories in my head that, oh, this has happened at work, I'm going to get told off, and and chef won't let me have these days off, or he's ignoring my messages. I want to go back on early shift because I've been put on late shift and promised I was going to be put back on early shift. And then he basically backtracked and said I couldn't. So all my plans were messed up. I was having anxiety attacks every day on that holiday. I was even giving my mum anxiety because she didn't know what to do with me. And let's just say it wasn't a holiday. It was just, we couldn't wait to come home because I think where I was working every day, and then as soon as I had that break for like a few days off, I couldn't switch off. It was constant fight or flight in me that just wouldn't go away, no matter where I was, even out of the kitchen, it was always there. So we come back from holiday, but still I did nothing about it. I stayed in the job, I just accepted it and carried on for 3, 4 more months, I think. So then
Mm.
it got round to about April. I thought, okay, I want to leave this job now. I've had enough. I need to do a job maybe where I've got my weekends back, where I'm closer to home. Still thinking in my head, yeah, I'll still do pastry, even though I really was not enjoying it anymore. I felt like I never got any praise from my superiors, even though I thought I tried really hard to do stuff. Just a really toxic, not nice environment, people being off with each other, and yeah, not a nice environment. And I never had a kind of like somewhere to just go and de-stress, because I'd come home, get in bed at 9 o'clock, and then I've got to be back up again at 5 o'clock the next morning to do it all again. And I feel like I just never had an off switch. So this is building up for a very long time. And then
Yeah.
so yeah, I said I want to leave. So I started looking for other jobs. I found this job a bit closer to home that had weekends off. And I thought, you know what, that's perfect. And in my head, I told myself, all my problems are going to go away. That's going to solve all my issues. This is the problem. I haven't got my weekends. It was so much deeper than that. I didn't even realize how bad it was.
Are you at this point, if you can recall, like ideating it all, or is that like not
No,
even?
not at all. I had a holiday booked from the year prior to Mexico with one of my best friends. What should have been a really exciting holiday, which I was looking forward to prior, but coming up to it, I was just so anxious because of the previous holiday I had with my mum. My skin was still really bad, and I just thought I don't want it to be a repeat of that, because that wasn't a holiday. Just before I went on holiday, I had an interview at a place. I went for the interview. I was not even feeling the interview. I knew deep down I didn't really want to work there, but I just needed to get out of the place that I was working in. So they liked me at the interview and they said, okay, when you're back from your trip, you'll come in and you'll do a trial shift. So I said, okay, that's fine. Went on holidays to Mexico, didn't have a great time. It wasn't a bad time because I went with my best friend and she's suffered with anxiety before, and she understands me on another level, and I can talk to her about anything. So I know that it wasn't going to be that I had to keep it from her. But let's just say this is when I noticed that I was having really negative cycles of thinking, constant negative thoughts about my appearance, about the things that have happened in the past, worries about the future that I couldn't seem to get out of. And I thought, where is this all coming from?
Mm-hmm.
And it was constant. I could be in the swimming pool and it's ticking. We went on a trip where we were driving quad bikes, and I'm the one driving. The whole time I'm in my head thinking all these negative thoughts. Not once on that holiday did I have a break from my thinking. I was on edge the whole time. I can't say that I didn't enjoy it, because some of it I did, but it wasn't the circumstances, it was how I was feeling inside. The holiday itself was great.
Even though you didn't talk a lot to your friend about it.
I did a little bit, but I think that I didn't want to put a dampener on the holiday by keep bringing it up.
If I were to ask her then, like, you know that Polly's going through something, but like the way you presented, you were on the quad bike, whatever you were doing, like, would we assume she's doing all right?
Yeah, no, I try to just keep it in, and I think that's what makes it worse. The more you suppress stuff, it just ends up exploding, and that is honestly what happened. I think I knew in my head that I was going back to this job. I know I had a trial shift, but I just still was just in such a bad place mentally without realizing how bad it was. So anyway, I come back from the trip, just feeling even worse, to be honest, because I thought I can't even go on holiday and relax. I can't get away from this. It's following me everywhere, this feeling that I had inside, that no matter what I did, it was following me everywhere. I come back from the trip, went back to work, and I remember the first day I went back to work, I didn't talk to anyone the whole day. And that's not like me. I'm very loud. I like to have a laugh. I like to take the mick out of people.
You like to take the what out of people?
Mick.
M-I-C-K, Mick?
Yeah. I would have said piss, but that doesn't sound as nice.
You're a Sid Cup girl. You do whatever you want, say it however you want. Look, taking the piss or taking the mick is just joking.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You weren't doing it that day on when you got back to work.
Yeah.
Unpollyish.
Yeah, very. Everyone was saying, what's wrong with you? You're being really quiet. And I can't even explain the feeling. I just felt so drained mentally, physically. And I didn't feel like myself. I felt like the life had just been sucked out of me. I couldn't put on an act anymore. I don't know if my sense of humor sometimes is covering up stuff. I don't know.
Maybe you're just funny.
I think I am funny.
Yeah.
I don't care if people don't think I am.
Funny thing about being funny is if no one thinks you're funny, then we might want to re-examine that. But hey,
Yeah.
you do you.
Well, people say I'm funny, but I'm trying to be modest and humble, you know.
Holly, I don't give a shit what they say. More importantly, do they laugh?
Oh yeah.
It's the most provable thing in the world.
I don't know how to describe my humour, but I like to make people squeal and be like, Polly.
It's so
That disgusting humour.
So London.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I've got my limits, and putting it on a podcast, the type of things I say.
But you're welcome to on this podcast, just so.
But what if no one laughs? Then I'm not funny.
But they might just laugh.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So you're going through, you're not talking, at least that day. And we're leading up to a moment here in which you try to end your life. So connect those dots for me, please.
So then I go for the trial shift at this next place. I ended up getting a job, even though in my head, I really wasn't in the right place to be doing. It was more responsibility, and that's something that I wasn't ready for or prepared for in any way. I handed my notice in at my place at the hotel, and was expecting to have a relief from leaving. I thought that was the issue, but I left, and the anxiety still followed me. The cloud still followed me. We're now talking May, so it's been a month from my notice. Left the job, and I'm still feeling like this, but I'm trying to keep positive. So I think this new job's going to solve everything. So it's leading up to the week of this new job, and the night before, I have a massive panic attack. I've had maybe one proper panic attack before. Went into my dad and I said, I can't do this. I don't want to go there tomorrow. I can't do it. He managed to calm me down.
What did the panic attack feel like, if you can put it into words?
Can't catch my breath. I felt like the walls of everything's closing in. Feel like you're breathing, but nothing's actually going in. And yeah, it's a horrible feeling. It's a really horrible feeling. And I've only ever had one before that. Takes a while to calm me down. But my dad managed to calm me down, luckily, and just said, look, just go in, show your face, go in for the first day and see how you go. It might just be nerves. You know, he genuinely just thought it was a bit of, new day anxiety.
Yeah.
But I knew in my head that it was so much worse than that. I was so far gone. Anyway, I went to the first day of the job, lasted about 2 hours, had an anxiety attack, said I need to get some air, and then called my dad on the phone, had a breakdown and said, I need to leave. I can't do this, Dad. I'm really not in a good place.
When you say panic attack and anxiety attack, you're saying it like that's synonymous?
A panic attack for me is where it's very overwhelming and your thoughts are kind of everywhere and it's more of a feeling. Anxiety attack for me is just where it's about something specific. I don't know. For me, they just feel anxiety attacks not maybe as severe. I'm just feeling really anxious and flustered.
Okay. All right, sure.
Maybe I'm using the wrong terminology. I don't know. But
fuck the right term.
My dad's always been very supportive and said, okay, that's fine. Get your stuff and just leave. It's not worth it if you're feeling that bad. So I felt a relief from leaving there. But my mum was at work. My dad was at work. So no one was at home and they was a bit concerned about me. So I just drove straight to my sister's house, just basically told her, yeah, I'm not doing it. I can't do it. And I could see that there was a look on her face like, what do you mean you can't do it? You're really excited for this? Because I did. I put on such an act. I was really excited for this new job, showing people their Instagram page and really bigging it up. Where inside, I was like, I really don't want to do this. I feel really, really shit and I don't want to do this. But I felt like I had to. I felt like that's all I had. That was the only option I had.
Yeah.
So that obviously didn't materialize, and then this is where it started to really spiral into really bad depression, because I had this feeling of, okay, well, what do I do now? The truth is I couldn't do anything. I was really unwell without me realizing, and this is where my mum and dad kind of just said to me, right, okay, well, maybe you just need a break. And I thought, okay, maybe I do just need a break. But for me, I've never had something like that before. I've always been doing something, whether it was studying or working.
What does that look like? A break?
Yeah. Okay, you have a break, but what am I doing after the break? How long is the break?
And the mind, your mind is processing all this in the state it was in. So for
Yeah,
sure, you're going to be like, presumably, like, well, then what? And this, because
yeah,
you're just
yeah,
not well. You said it. You were
yeah.
not well.
I was so unwell. And it's only now that I'm on the other side of it, I realise now how severely ill I was. My thoughts were so out of whack. Everything was a negative spin. I actually forgot what it's like to be happy. And
Yeah.
I remember asking my sister, have I ever been happy? And she was like, what are you on about? And I went, have I ever been happy? Like, we've been together and I've been happy and smiling and laughing? She was like, oh, yeah, of course you have. Do you not remember? And I remember we was laying in my bed and I said, I genuinely don't remember ever being happy. And she was like, Polly, you're scaring me. We had many conversations like that, me and my sister, whilst I was having this break. She would come home from work and lay in bed with me and I'd ask really weird questions. I remember actually saying to her once, do you not think life's actually really long, like too long? And she went, no, I think it's short. I don't feel like I've got enough time to do anything. And I remember thinking, did I ever feel like that? Like, this is when I started to think, oh my God, life is so long if I'm going to feel like this.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, when is my life going to end? Like, I do not want to feel like this anymore. And I feel like this is where the thoughts started to come in, because is that suicide ideation? I don't know.
I don't know. You know that I have a bit of a gift for memoir titles.
No.
You're going to listen to these fucking podcasts a little bit more closely. So you may not never write the memoir, but here's a potentially good title for your memoir. Ready? Have I ever been happy?
Genuinely how I felt. And it's crazy to think that now that I actually felt like that, because that is genuinely how I felt. But now I can't remember that feeling because I don't feel like it anymore. It's bizarre.
Like right now, life doesn't feel too short or long.
Neither. Yeah, I don't think it's too short. I definitely don't think it's too long anymore. I feel like I'm quite present at the moment.
Right. So when you're starting this, so you're having the conversations with your sister, you're clearly like kind of, for lack of a better word, like spiraling down.
Yeah.
What's the degree to which you're communicating with people really?
0.
Like sister, mother, father, friends, therapist, counselor, anyone?
I mean, at this point, at the early on point, I was mainly just laying in bed all day. So this was kind of like end of May, beginning of June. Wasn't showering, wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating, wasn't on any meds at this point. But it was probably a few weeks into this actually. And the thing with meds, I wouldn't say I was against them, but yeah, never thought that it was going to be an option. I didn't think it had to be an option. And my mum kind of felt like that as well. I think, again, there's a stigma around medication.
Yeah.
There's a massive stigma. And I was part of that, I'll be honest, before I went through this. I thought, people shouldn't rely on it as much. There's other things that you can do. And God, was I wrong, though. I was so wrong. The first medication I got put on, so I wasn't sleeping at all at this point. I was up all night just because I had nothing to do. I had no purpose.
Yeah.
Nothing. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to see anyone. I cancelled any plans that I had with friends. Yeah, just was a hermit.
When you say laying in bed doing nothing, are you literally doing nothing or are you on your phone on TikTok?
That's exactly what I was doing. And I would look at my screen time and I'd be on TikTok for like 18 hours a day.
That is a lot of hours.
Yeah. And that was all I would do. Apart from going to the toilet, I'd get back in bed. That was it.
Because you're 23 or 22 at the time, that's why I said TikTok. If you were 35...
Facebook, maybe.
Don't rip that much on Facebook. I'm well north of 35. No, if you were 30, I would have said Instagram. If you were 40, I would have said Facebook.
Right, okay.
And if you were 50, I would have said something else.
And what would 50 be? Reading a book?
God forbid. That was the humor.
Sarcasm.
Hey, you know what? You don't have to be 50 to read.
I know. That was a joke. And it made you laugh, so.
That's all that matters, really. So less social media today?
I've been trying to create new habits. So I meditate for 10 minutes a day. I do 10 minutes of Duolingo a day, learning Spanish.
What's the word for suicide in Spanish?
No idea. But I haven't got to that section yet. Whether there's going to be a section on it, who knows?
I'm going to take a guess that there is on Duolingo in any of the languages they offer, zero sections on suicide conversations or language. But who knows? Maybe that's my true calling is to create an app in which yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
One of your call-ins.
Ideas beget ideas. Yes, we can have more than one. Go plural or go home. All right. So even though you're doing these very good things now, it's early June last year. You're on TikTok 18 hours a day.
This is where I now was not sleeping and it was becoming an issue. I just couldn't sleep for the life of me. And this is where the hallucinations began. So this is where I was having auditory hallucinations. My window would be shut. There'd be nothing going on. And I would hear music coming down from literally a few doors down. And it would be a song on repeat. Can't remember the song, but it would be a song on repeat. I'd get up, Mum, can you hear this? No. She said, right, I think we need to go to the doctors. So we went to my GP and she just basically said she hasn't slept, she isn't eating. And they basically just prescribed me, I don't know if it's their first protocol, citalopram, 10 milligrams.
What's another name for that drug? Do you know?
It's an SSRI. So they gave me, I think they're just like kind of antihistamines, bit of a sedative, I don't know. You can buy them over the counter anyway. So I started taking that antidepressant and then one of them tablets at night to help me sleep. I'd probably fall asleep for about 2 hours, wake up, and that was it. Really wasn't helping.
And this did apply to me to some degree, you go to a doctor finally to get help. When you take meds finally to get some relief and they don't help, it's almost worse.
Yeah.
You know now, okay, maybe you need to go back to the doctor. At the time, it's like, I finally did the thing I was supposed to do and I don't feel better. And
Yeah.
maybe I feel worse. And it's like, I feel like that's a super dangerous time.
Yeah, I agree. And the doctor did say that you might feel worse before you feel better.
Yeah,
the first 2 weeks are usually quite bad. And I just thought, okay, but if it's 2 bad weeks for them to feel better, that's fine. Anyway, 2 weeks went by, still not sleeping, still felt all the negative thoughts in my head, still wasn't doing anything, was laying in bed. And my birthday rolled around and I made no plans with my friends. I sat in the garden with my mum, my dad, my sister, and her girlfriend. I didn't even talk. Didn't really reply to any messages, people saying happy birthday. I was there, but I wasn't there.
But that's not you, so nobody's saying anything, or they're kind of like, all right, we know she's going through something, give her space, at least she's here with us, and she's not in bed.
Yeah, it was that. It was like a miracle that I got out of bed to come downstairs into the garden.
Of course you're going to be in a garden. I'm sure there was tea there. You have tea?
Well, as in a cup of tea?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, not so much in the summer. It's a winter drink, which I'm drinking right now.
Of course. Right. In summer, you're in the garden.
Yeah.
Which is an actual garden with like flowers and shit.
Well, that's what we call it. It's a yard, a backyard.
That's why I've been confused for so long.
I mean, there is flowers, there's plants.
Right. Well, that's just the way the earth works.
Yeah.
But you didn't manicure anything.
Personally, no.
So you can in England, perhaps in the UK, say, I'm in a garden and you haven't done any work. Maybe you mowed the lawn, but like it's just the space.
Yeah.
I have been giving you all way more credit than you frankly deserve because I thought all of you were out in gardens, like, a few hours a week. I am 100% okay embracing and acknowledging my limited intelligence. I am. You're in the garden. So here you are. You're not drinking tea because it's summer in the garden, which is not really a garden, with your family. And then what happens?
Not much, really. Just the same routine, laying in bed all day. I'm very close with my cousins, I will say. 3 older cousins. They knew that I was going through stuff. I went to stay with 2 of them on separate occasions. They was quite happy for me to just be how I was, be ill, and know that I wasn't very well. They came round yesterday and I told them that I was going on. And they went, oh, I'm going to follow it straight away. What's it called? So I told them, they went straight on it. And they went, can you give us a shout out?
They probably will not like the podcast because it's not for everybody. They'll like your episode, which will be out in like a month or so. So they're going to have to be a little patient. But cousins, what are your cousins' names? Here we go. Shouting out.
Here we go. So Danielle, and she actually listened to one today because I suggested it. Well, I showed her the podcast and she went, it's really insightful. And then we've got Lucy, amazing as well. Went to stay with her for a few days when I was feeling really low, and she was just there for me more than I could even ask for. And we've got Louisa. Yeah, again, she's been there for me whenever I've needed her, texted her, she's there straight away. Yeah, they're my three older cousins who just had my back the whole way through it.
What else can we say about them before we move on with as we get really close to a very, very scary day?
Probably without their support and just being the people that they are, really, and the supportive older cousins. Can't say things might have turned out differently because I did still attempt, but they made it a little bit easier at sometimes when I was with them, and that made all the difference. And I always feel safe when I'm with them. I always have, even when I was little. They're very protective.
Those were wise words. A lot of what you're saying are so profound because I don't think I'm going to stop always saying I don't think people realize, because I'm sure most do. You know what I say when I say sometime in the intro to help people feel a little less shitty and a little less alone, if you've ever heard that. I don't say less shitty and less alone, though that could apply. I'm really focusing on a little. That's about the most I can do.
Yeah.
That's what they can do. And you said it and you nailed it. A little is not a little, in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. In a time like that, just spending time with them just eased it a little. And at that point in time, that was enough.
At that moment in time.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Enough shouting out to your cousins. They got their shout out.
Woo!
Go party. You got shouted out, which is pretty awesome by you, not from me, but on a podcast called Suicide Noted. Go tell all your friends. Pretty sure they're going to be like,
don't know about that.
Although I bet one or two would be like quietly not saying, oh, I've thought about that. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. But that does not apply to you because you're here. As it builds up, is there more and more, or can we sort of, for lack of a better word, fast forward to that day?
So we went back to the doctors, and they basically said, you haven't waited long enough for them to kick in. So my mum was starting to go out of her head a little bit. I'm really worried about my daughter and it's not helping. And they basically just said we had to be patient. And at this point, my mum and dad were getting really worried about me, really worried. There was nothing was improving. I was still the exact same. And at this point, we'd actually contacted a private psychiatrist, but they didn't have any availability until end of August. It's crazy over here. The mental health care is, I don't know what it's like where you are, but so we had that in the future, but we needed kind of help now. And I think my mum and dad were starting to understand that. They then upped my medication after speaking to a different doctor. I was then on that for a couple of weeks. This is when it got to the point where I started to feel like, okay, I don't want to feel like this anymore.
If at that time, somebody, your cousin, sister, parents, said to you, why can't you go on any longer? Which is a hard question. Like the why is always a hard question. When you ask somebody like, why did you attempt? It's just a really tricky question. Not judgy. I'm just curious.
Because I was just suffering so much inside and I could not see any way that I was going to feel better. I could not see a solution, a light at the end of the tunnel. I could not see a way to fix how I felt. I thought I've got a medication. That was my last resort. I was going to try everything and go on medication, and I went on medication, and that's still not helping. And every single day felt so painfully long that I started to think I'd get into bed. Well, I was already in bed. I'd actually pray, and I'm not religious, but I would pray every night, please just take me in my sleep. Yeah. I've had enough now. I'm tired of this. I don't want to feel like this anymore, and I've had enough.
Are you religious?
No, I'm not religious.
Prayers aren't going anywhere.
It ain't going to work.
Clearly it doesn't.
Yeah, it was like, you're on your own, love.
Good luck, kiddo.
Yeah. Then I started to properly think about it. I started to Google, looking at different ways. I did a lot of research on all the different ways to do it. I couldn't bring myself to hang myself. I had the thought of it, I couldn't.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do anything where I was going to, for example, jump off of anything and then risk not actually dying, but then being paralysed and also still mentally ill. And then I thought I'm going to be in an even worse state. And then there was this one other thing as well. I heard a girl talk, or I don't know if it was a boy or a girl talk on your podcast, and
Yeah.
they actually didn't know if it was wise for the listeners to hear it, just in case people get ideas. For a little while, that was what I was gonna do, and I actually even bought a mask.
So you get shit delivered to the home in which your parents live.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't think that was in when it came, but I was ordering loads of stuff. I was ordering colouring books to try and distract myself and stuff. Yeah. So another delivery coming through the door, I don't think they questioned it, because I don't think at this point, even though I was thinking it, I didn't tell anyone. No one knew.
I'm always trying to sort of, as best I can, capture the mind of someone who is ready to leave, which I think words will never quite express it.
Yeah.
You think back, were you like, I cannot believe I'm going to do this?
All I kept thinking was, I'm just so sad that it's had to come to this, and my life is now going to end because I'm suffering and it won't go away. And this is it for me. This is how I'm going to die. But at that moment in time, for me, that was the only option, and nothing was going to sway me. My sister even said to me, she obviously knew I was really severely depressed, but she kept saying to me, "You're not going to do anything, are you? You're not going to do anything." And I kept making a joke out of it. And I kept saying, "Oh, you won't care that much, will you?" And she's like, "Holly, don't speak like that." But in my head, I'm trying to convince myself, they'll move on. They'll get over it. Like, that it's not going to hurt anyone too much. Yeah, they're going to be upset. But of course, that is so far from the truth. So far from the truth. But when you're in that headspace, you cannot think of anything else. You do not think of anyone else, anything else. It is just that on the spotlight for you. For me, that it was the only option that I could see at that moment in time.
Okay, so you ultimately decide that you're going to overdose and vodka.
Yeah, figured out that was going to be what I was going to do. That was the only thing I researched roughly how many milligrams I'd need for it to work.
This is stuff that was prescribed medication?
Yes. Like, I saw that if you drank alcohol as well, it helps with the effect. Now I had that in my head. I just thought, okay, now I just need to plan the date. And my sister's birthday was coming up in July. And I thought, okay, well, I don't want to do it before her birthday, because I don't want the run up to her birthday in the future to be, that's when my sister killed herself. I don't know. That's just what I thought. I didn't want to do it before her birthday. I wanted to spend, and in my head, I wanted to spend her last birthday with her.
You wanted to spend
experience of her birthday.
Like, you were confident, and this tracks. It makes total sense that when you do this thing, you will die.
Yeah, I was 100% without a doubt convinced that I was going to die, and that was going to be it. And the suffering was going to end, and it was going to be over. Just had to make it past her birthday, which is on the 18th of July. And then finally I can do it, and that's done. So it then got round to, I think I did it the weekend after. I can't actually remember the specific day, but it was towards the end of July. I didn't actually have enough medication left to do it. So I actually lied to my GP and said that I'd lost my medication, so they would give me more. But they only give you 2 weeks worth rather than a full month. So I'm guessing for maybe people who've used that excuse before. They then gave me 2 weeks worth. So I ended up having, I think I had 33 tablets. So it was a Sunday night. I went to the shop, bought a bottle of vodka.
What kind of vodka was it? Do you remember?
Glen's vodka.
Cheap.
Yeah, well, I thought, I'm going to die anyway. I could have got the one with gold glitter in it. There's one with gold glitter. I should have done that. I mean, well, I've got plenty of time to drink it now anyway, so.
It's a Sunday night. Definitely not drinking tea.
It's summer.
You do not ingest these pills and drink that vodka in the garden.
No, it's not one of them nights. No, I'm in bed, said goodnight to my mum and dad's, knowing or thinking that would be the last time I said goodbye. I wrote multiple letters.
To whom?
So I wrote a generic letter. I can't remember what it said because I threw them all away now. But a generic letter, just basically explaining how I've been feeling. Basically, I'm sorry to everyone. It's no one's fault. No one's done this to me. This is just how I feel. I didn't want anyone to feel any guilt or why didn't I try more? It was no one's fault. It's just how I felt. I wrote one to my best friend, Izzy, one to my sister, Darcy, one to her girlfriend, Holly, my mum, my dad, my cousins. I've got a very good support circle. People that I used to work with, that I'm still really good friends with. There was a long list of people. My friend Rosie.
So you physically wrote them letters?
physically wrote. It wasn't a long. I made a generic letter for in my head everyone to read, and then wrote everyone a little note. I'm sorry, I love you forever. But I wanted everyone to have a little something that I've written to them personally to show them that I loved them and I cared about them, and I'm sorry that this has happened.
Is that on the same? This is happening like the day of, the week of?
This is happening in the day of. So I'm in bed just before I'd done anything else, written the letters, put them in an envelope, put them under my pillow, and then just tipped them all into my mouth, knocked it back with I did about half the bottle of the vodka in one gulp.
And are you a drinker typically?
I used to be, not being able to do that, but I just didn't care. That's it. I want to go.
At some hours, your mom intersects here.
Yeah.
Right?
So I then got into bed, tried to fall asleep, and I honestly convinced myself that I was just going to fall asleep and not wake up. And I was so happy about that. I was thinking, that's it. I'm gone. Bye. And then obviously I woke up, went to the bathroom, and that's when my mum come up the stairs. So it was about 7 o'clock in the morning.
Your sister was going to work and she's a nurse, and that your dad was called and came over, and that you went to the hospital for a while. Charcoal probably kind of thing.
But I didn't actually. I don't know if this is why, but people had to help me down the stairs because I couldn't walk. The paramedic helped me down the stairs, sorry. As soon as I got to the stairs, I felt all the stuff come up.
Oh, you threw it up?
And I projectiled into the toilet. I don't know if that maybe was why they didn't bother giving me anything. But I had an ECG on for about 5 hours on my chest because I don't know if it was my heart rate or my blood pressure. There was something not right from me taking all these pills. And I think there's something you can get it's called serotonin syndrome. Mm-hmm. When you have too much serotonin from antidepressants, or it can be from drugs or any like narcotics. And I don't know if that was something that was a side effect of that. I don't think I had that. I think they were just really wary of it because of how much I'd taken. So yeah, I got taken in an ambulance and I was in the hospital for about 5 hours. Can't really remember much of it, to be honest.
So did they know what you were trying to kill yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were in there and they stabilize you. And then before they let you out, are you talking with anybody about the fact that you tried to kill yourself?
Yes. I don't know if it was a therapist or a psychologist coming to talk to me and basically just said, are you going to do this again? Are you going to try again? How are you feeling now? And I didn't want to get sectioned, but I didn't feel like I needed to be there. And I didn't feel like it was going to make me feel any better by going there. So I just lied. Yeah, no, I'm okay. I'm really sorry that I've done it. It's never going to happen again. This was all a pack of lies.
You can't really believe what she's saying.
No.
You didn't magically become happy.
No.
Obviously, at some point, something changes, or we wouldn't be talking here right now, probably. But at that point, I know you're probably out of it. You're still suicidal, no?
Yeah.
So you leave the hospital.
5 hours later, I said, I'm fine to go home. They let me go home. I then got referred to the home treatment team.
Okay.
Which is basically where a mental health service come out to visit you once a week to see what you're living like, how you are, check up on you, and you go in there for a meeting with a psychologist. When you try to take your own life in the NHS, you get fast tracked to see, like you have to go to the home treatment team because you're seen as like a danger to yourself or at high risk.
But you have to try to kill yourself first.
Yep, to get there. Prior to this, I had actually contacted a charity, Mind, and it was a 90-day wait. When they finally got in touch with me, I was asleep, so I missed the call. And then they basically ended up signing me off 2 days later without checking up on me again to seeing if I'm even still here. And then that was it. And that's what it was like, trying to get help without being suicidal. Do you know what I think it is? I don't think it's anything on the people. I think the funding just isn't there. And saying that, I actually did a skydive when I was 18 and raised money for that charity.
I know when things are adding up, things essentially fall between the cracks, but I still feel like someone could have just called you a second time.
Yeah, I agree.
So when the team starts visiting, you have your visit. How do you get from being where you were to not necessarily to how you are this moment today, but out of that space?
So number one was the doctor there listened to my symptoms properly and completely changed my medication. So she changed me from citalopram to mirtazapine, and mirtazapine is a sedative, so it makes you sleep. And of course, I wasn't sleeping. As soon as I started taking that, it would knock me out for about 8 hours.
One of the things I was thinking earlier on in our conversation when you were saying about the sleep is I thought the only thing that matters is make sure you sleep.
Yeah.
Like that's not the only thing that we need here. I have gone through, and it wasn't as severe as yours, but to me, it felt like major sleep stuff. Saw the impact it had on my life, and I thought, I will do fucking anything to get to sleep and stay asleep. Hard drugs. I didn't care.
Yeah.
So when my doctors would play around with, well, that drug could be a little addictive, I said, like a prescribed drug, I would say, you are really not getting it. Okay, I will risk having a mild addiction, which is a problem. I understand. You have to sleep. So this doctor listened. Shout out to her. Shout outs.
I don't know what her name is.
Doctor from the NHS.
Oxley's.
Sounds very British.
So that was the first thing, but don't get me wrong, that took about 3 months for me to actually feel lifted. The next thing I had was, I think because I thought, okay, this didn't work the first time. I've got this private psychologist appointment coming up. I'm just going to try my best to wait for that and see if that's going to help me. So I did. I waited. I was getting my sleep back thanks to the medication.
Mm-hmm.
Went to see this psychiatrist. From that point on, started having CBT therapy. Yeah, CBT. And I was a bit wary because I've had it before with a counsellor.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if she was doing it in the right way or I wasn't really understanding it. She wasn't really giving me like work to do at home. It was kind of an hour session. You don't do anything at home. And it's something you need to integrate when you're on your own. And I had a great psychiatrist. Let's just say I'm very lucky and grateful that my mum and dad had the money to even put me private in the first place.
Yeah.
Because God forbid we didn't have the money to do that, I probably would have attempted again.
Money matters.
Yeah, it does.
At least one human being will hear that out there and be like, well, rich people try too. Yep, we know. That's true.
Yeah.
It matters though, a lot.
It does matter.
Good. So in your case, had the money, fortunately also found a good doctor.
Really good.
Started sleeping.
Yeah.
CBT. Yeah. And when is this? This is now we're into fall.
So we're into September now. So I started having a weekly session with my psychologist doing CBT therapy. Yeah, it took a few sessions for me, I think, to trust him first and foremost. You're basically telling them everything, stuff that you've never told anyone else before. It's a lot. It is a lot, but they're professionals and that's their job. And if, you need to let it out. And it done me the world of good. Yeah, I had therapy up until December.
You are by December. You stopped the therapy?
Yep.
But you're drinking tea at that point?
Yes. Got to have my tea.
Why'd you stop going? It sounded like it was really working well.
It wasn't necessary. With CBT therapy, I keep saying CBT therapy, it's CB therapy. The tools that he gave me, he taught me to use them myself. And he gave me a worksheet that when I was feeling anxious, I'd go to this worksheet, I break it down, I write it out, and I process it rather than suppressing how I was feeling, which I constantly did. If I felt anxious, I'd go, no, you're fine. Rather than going, what is this telling me? Is it just a fight or flight? There's nothing there. Or is there something going on that I'm suppressing? And I've now managed I can do that all by myself. I know if it's just my body, because sometimes you get anxiety and it's not really anything, it's just your body. Maybe there's a trigger somewhere, but you're not in danger now. Or there is something that's happened that you're trying to ignore and you need to deal with it. Honestly, amazing. He taught me really good meditating exercises. Yeah, gave me loads of exercises to do. And he even said to me, this isn't a long-term thing. I'm going to teach you what you need to know. Yeah, it should be a few months and you should be good to go. And he wasn't lying.
Shout out to him.
Yeah, shout out to Harry.
Sometimes it takes a lot of people to help someone stay alive.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, you're proof. So you have this thing in December that ends. You've been doing the exercises. You do them not as often anymore, but we're only in February. Now, why do you search for suicide, though, in Spotify or Apple?
Well, because I was actually listening to your podcast when I was suicidal. And I always said to myself, if I'm going to get better, I would love to talk on the podcast. And here I am. Here
you are. When you're in the throes of it, in the real bad part, if I'm going to get better, wasn't in your head, though.
No, it wasn't. I'm talking, this was after the attempt. Okay, it didn't work. I'm going to try and see this therapist now. And I was still listening to your podcast every single day.
Wow. So you've heard a lot of them.
I've heard a lot.
That's so interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you said, if I get better one day, I'm going to go and talk about it.
Like I'm now finally at a place where I can talk about it and it not make me feel any kind of way. It's just something that happened. I'm okay now.
Is there one little hack or secret to CBT that we can learn from you today?
I think the most important thing is to just, if you're feeling anxious, stressed, if there's something that's bothering you, take a second, take a break, step back from the situation, relax yourself, and try and take a bird's eye view approach of the situation. Take yourself kind of out of the situation and, honor how it's making you feel. Don't try and push it down. Okay, I'm feeling anxiety. I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling angry. That's absolutely fine. You're allowed to feel them things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's what you do with that afterwards is what matters. And, write it down. That really helped me. Write it all out, exactly how you're feeling, how it made you feel, what you can do about it, what's worst case scenario. That really helps. If you're really anxious about something that's coming up that hasn't even happened yet, okay, what is the worst possible thing that could happen? You write it out. Okay, but if that thing was to happen, would I still be okay? And 9 times out of 10, yeah.
Yeah. And then the 1 time out of 10, then we have a podcast called Suicide Noted.
Yeah.
You're not a doctor, but you're sharing stuff you've learned. That's important. Yes. And it's worked for you.
I find it therapeutic to actually be the one to write on a pen and a paper. And I feel like with a pen and a paper, you can really go to town. You really let it rip. And I don't know, with a phone,
tweets,
it's not the same.
Tweet style. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't find it the same. I think sometimes it's better because then, okay, you can have it on your notes app, but it's kind of good to have it all in one go and look back.
Does anybody know that you attempted, that hasn't come up already in our conversation?
No.
So of all the people, you don't have to call them out, but of all the people that do know, once they learned, whether it was that night or some point after, did anybody say anything to you that was really, you found really shitty?
No, not one person.
You got a good fucking group.
Yeah, really good group.
Even the most well-intentioned people sometimes inadvertently say shitty things about this stuff.
They either cried, gave me a cuddle, said, I'm so sorry that you felt like that. I'll do anything to help you. Let me be there for you. Nothing at all that made me feel shitty.
Wow.
Nothing.
What did and or do in terms of diagnoses do you think you had or have?
So I got diagnosed with, when I went to see the private psychiatrist, it was depression and mixed anxiety. I've had anxiety, generalized anxiety since I was kind of 17, but it was never severe. I never took medication for it. I never had, CBT for it. I saw a counselor here and there, but it was never severe. I definitely think I agree with the depression. I could not do anything. I had no energy. And yeah, the anxiety I did as well. Sometimes I thought that potentially I had a bit of OCD. This is me now self-diagnosing, just because of the obsessive thoughts in my head, not necessarily physical compulsions, but my mind was on a kind of obsessive thinking pattern.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that was part of the anxiety, the depression, the lack of sleep.
I think all those things are true. And I think you just were not treated correctly.
Yeah.
And part of it's you didn't go for treatment. So it's complicated. I'm not pointing fingers. You had the stuff, and if it goes long enough without being treated, often it leads to what you did. It's not original thought. That's pretty standard stuff. But then, and sometimes people try to get treated. It doesn't work. I mean, it's complicated.
Yeah, it is very complicated.
When was more or less the last time you thought about wanting to die?
Probably a couple of sessions into my CBT therapy. So maybe September.
Nothing since.
Nothing since.
How does that feel to not want to die?
Pretty fucking good. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, I don't want you to lie.
No.
I'm about the opposite. We do the opposite of that here for sure.
Oh yeah.
What in your life helps you feel better?
Family and friends.
Do you have a job?
I do dog grooming with my friend Rosie.
Where did that come from?
She needed a driver for her business starting in January. I obviously didn't have anything going on. I said, I'll help you. And here we are.
Awesome.
I love it.
I would do that as a job because dogs are awesome.
They are. They really are.
Do you think you're going to die a natural death?
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you the pink and purple pill question then. You know what it is,
What's
right?
that? No.
Oh, the pink and purple pills. If I give you a pill and you die, no one knows it's suicide. They just think you died naturally and there's no pain. Would you take the pill or would you save the pill?
I'd save it.
You would save
Or
it.
throw it away. Yeah.
Last question, I think, is around myths or misconceptions, especially if they've not come up in this conversation that you want to talk about.
One of the biggest myths that I think people think, maybe if they haven't been through it before, is that it's the easy way out to take your life. I think that couldn't be further from the truth. I think people are really suffering when they feel like that, and it's definitely not easy. For them to even get to that point, it is not the easy way out, and they're suffering that bad that it's actually a really fucking hard and shitty time, and it's certainly not easy.
What else would you like to share?
Just to anyone listening, really, this was something I did want to say, that when I was in the midst of it, I honestly, hand on heart, never ever thought I was going to feel better. I could not see it for months, but I promise you, one way or another, you don't know how you're going to get there, but it does just unravel in a way that, you know, you come out of it. If you know, make sure you get the help, go on medication if you need to, talk to people, and, you know, there is life to be lived, and, you know, it is going to get better.
You know the irony of all that, though, right? If you heard a podcast,
someone saying that when you felt really shit.
Like, how do we get around that? I don't know.
I get it, because when people, you're right, because when people would say that to me, when I felt really shit, I was like, you have no idea. No, you're very right.
But it's worth repeating and it's worth sharing, and there are people that hear that. So you do what you can.
Yeah, I know. But when you're in that headspace, you're right. It's not, no matter what anyone says to you, you can't hear it. It doesn't go in. You don't believe it.
We try. Thanks again, Polly.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure. Let's get back to our lives. Thanks again, Polly. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Sean.
Take care.
Bye.
As always, thanks so much for listening and all of your support. Special thanks to Polly in England. Thanks, Polly. If you are a suicide attempt survivor and you'd like to talk, please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com on Facebook or Twitter/X. I believe you can still reach out to me there at Suicide Noted. Please check the show notes to learn more about the podcast, including our membership. And we really appreciate you listening. That's all for episode number 205. Stay strong. Do the best you can. I'll talk to you soon.